Saratoga Springs City Council agenda or meeting policy session to order tonight, Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017 at 6 p.m. Present tonight is Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Barch, myself, way back. Councilman Wilden, Councilman McComber will be a little late. He is stuck on Pioneer Crossing in traffic, but he will be here shortly. I've asked Councilwoman Barch to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Porter to lead us in our pledge.
Our Father who art in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered together as residents and interested parties in this beautiful community. We are so grateful unto thee for the many opportunities that thou hast given to us. We especially ask any decisions that will affect our city, that we might do that which is best for the majority of the residents who live here, and that we might be kind and calm to each other. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Shall we please rise?
Okay, we have a presentation on the Redwood Road UDOT project construction update. Andrew Jordan, perfect. Have the mic so that we can get it recorded.
Good. First off, we'd like to thank the council for letting us come and share a little bit of what the project has been doing and what our status is with you guys tonight. Good? Everyone can hear. Okay, sounds good. So tonight we wanted to give you an update on the widening project, which is from Centennial to Pioneer Crossing, and the overlay project, and then a little bit of what our PI efforts have been thus far in these projects now that we're about a month into them. So first off is the widening project. We've shifted the lanes to the east. They're currently reconstructing from Lakeview Terrace up to 4th South. Getting the drainage in right there right now is the big push, and doing parts of the reconstruction at Grandview. We're looking to have parts of Grandview, that center section of Grandview, paved back late this week, early next week, and then traffic shifted to the inside so we can rebuild the outside radius points on Grandview. Let's see where else we are. Once we get completed with the west side of the road, we'll shift traffic to that west side that's brand new and start on the east side of Redwood, and hope to have everything kind of wrapped up by the end of the year, this year, to have traffic flowing. There will be some work that happens next spring that'll be off the roadway, like the trail section, same as well as the detention basin constructed there just north of Tanner Lane. So those will take place over the winter and early next spring. That's the widening project and where we're at right there on that one. The resurfacing project, they're currently doing the night work in the portion between Harbor and Village Parkway. That section, they should have that completed depending on the weather this week, and then be moving further south from Harbor later this week. We plan on doing night work through till after the Labor Day holiday, and then possibly switching back to days. Currently we're having an issue with receiving enough trucks. It works better schedule-wise for them to be running at night, so they can run more trucks at night than we can during the day. There's just so much construction going on right now that everyone is short trucking. The trucking industry is holding us up a little bit there on that one. A couple projects that this current contractor is working on should be finishing up before the holiday, and then they should be able to get that, but that's still dependent on what works best and whether they can get the weather and complete those other projects on time. As we move further south out of that area and have that area completed, we do expect to pull that speed limit restriction as we move further south through that area. So you should see that lift as we move out of that area, return to the normal speed limits.
So my name is Mendy Magistro, and my job is to inform the public about what's going on during construction, and then also when we receive public comments, I bring them back to the project team. What I'm going to report to you tonight, it's from a few different avenues. It's from our project hotline, our project email. I've been working with David Johnson with the city. He's been forwarding public comments to me as well. And then there's also the Fixed Redwood Road Facebook page, has about 800 members, as you know. So since construction in early July, we've received about 50 comments, and this does not include the Fixed Redwood Road Facebook page. So the top 3 topics that we've received the most comments about are the merge that was north of, and so since we've received those public comments, we have changed the lane configurations, and we've gotten some positive feedback from that, so that's good. The reduced speed limits south of Village Parkway, we've gotten about 12 comments about that, so once we're done in that area, we're working to lift the speed limit there. It's mostly in the developed areas between Village Parkway and Harbor Parkway. And then the one mostly today we've seen a lot on social media about, and that's the backup south of Grandview Boulevard. So we had someone on site today monitoring the traffic signal there, and they'll be back again tomorrow to monitor and adjust as needed until we can optimize that signal. And Andrew can speak more to this.
Need more of the specifics of that? That's the one we're getting the emails on. That's
Hot topic of the night. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Texting while sitting. Part of our issue with that signal is it's offline. It's not connected to our fiber backbone, so we can't monitor that through the TOC. We actually have to send someone out and monitor that in person. So we had someone there this morning. There were some issues with, there's a sensor on the mast arm that picks up when cars are sitting there. So that wasn't functioning quite properly and was timing out on that. So we've adjusted the timing on that so it'll catch a lot longer. That should be maxing out, and we adjusted how much time it allows for Redwood versus Grandview. So that was part of that sensor not working the way it should with the traffic backed up. It wasn't sensing. It picks up cars when they're moving, but it wasn't picking them up just sitting there. So it was timing out rather rapidly and then throwing it back to Grandview. That's why there wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. So there was an issue there that did get corrected this morning. They did notice that it was helping later for, I guess it's the B track when they were coming in. Right. It's not, but they did notice that it was working the way it should, that those changes took place after it's already backed up pretty well. He will be back there again tomorrow to monitor that, to make sure that that's working, and if not, we'll make additional changes there to help correct that issue up of it. So that's part of the new signal that we're putting in at Grandview. So when that new signal goes up and comes online, a lot of that should be connected. We have to make the connection up to Pony. So right now they're boring the conduit and putting the fiber in up to Pony Express. So we should see that come online. It should be about September-ish, late September, when that signal will be hooked up. So they'll be a little more. Better.
Is there any way, like, I know tomorrow they're going to be here, which is great, but every 4 or 5 days send someone just to make sure that it's not, you know what I mean, on Monday morning, each Monday or so, I don't know, just, you know what I'm saying, because like you found this error today and pressed to make sure someone was there, just we sort of really pushed that from a city's perspective to have somebody there this morning. We maybe would not have had it, then tomorrow would have continued to be a problem.
Right.
So is there maybe some way we could have someone come every once in a while until we get back online?
Yeah, and as we make shifts in the traffic patterns, like I said, we're gonna be moving traffic to the middle. They'll come back out and reevaluate that signal as we move the traffic patterns around that intersection as we work our, get the road constructed and still get people through.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have a couple more minutes, or is our okay?
You're good.
So I just wanted to let you know about some of the back to school outreach we've done. We've been working with Alpine School District in preparation for back to school. So I mean, adjusting the signal at Grandview, those types of things we can do. We've encouraged people to walk or bike to school when possible. Ride the parents to have their kids do that. Organize a carpool, and we've already kind of heard people are doing that. They've and then watch for school buses, give them time and space for left turns. So we've pushed this through our website, weekly email updates, social media, and then Alpine School District has put some of the information on their website as well.
And I appreciate it, but a little background just because people were mocking you a little bit.
Okay.
Saratoga Shores is 90% a walking school.
Okay.
There's only 2 buses that go down on the south end of the Saratoga Springs development, the Centennial Boulevard and all of that. All the kids in the North Park go to the new elementary school, and so 90% are walking. There's only 2 buses, and then the problem is Saratoga Shores is the ALL school, so kids are coming from all over the region, and they have to drive because buses don't pick them up. So I appreciate all those efforts, but a few more cars because of the ALL program. And
Good
most
to
of the
know.
parents who are
Thank
driving
you.
their kids are driving them from up in the hills and benches.
So then really carpooling would be the only thing.
It doesn't
Okay.
really.
All right,
I
well.
don't. I guess those efforts were as much as they're appreciated. I wouldn't push those too much more because sort of almost people are like making fun of.
I think
you don't
those-
know the circle.
Well, I think those are probably more useful for like the high school and the junior high is probably where those are more useful.
Yeah, but you can't walk. There's no sidewalks to walk to
Right.
Westlake or Vista.
Well, it's Sage Hills,
Yeah.
and then for sure Vista and the high school. At least in social media that I've been watching, parents are forcing their kids on the bus, as opposed to sitting in traffic by the bus.
Yeah,
And then if you have any more questions for us,
Oh, your trees in front of your neighborhood.
So there's trees along the trees that are identified. I know they've met with the coordinator. I can't remember the name, but there's 15 trees that a tree moving company feels would be viable to be moved. And as a city, the HOA is forfeiting their rights to those trees. And instead of just tearing them down, I wanted to bring to the council's attention. I'm sorry, I have not eaten since 1 o'clock, and I'm better with food in me, so I apologize. I took a bite right when we were doing this. But bring to the council an opportunity that we can maybe save these trees and move them into our parks. So we have like our Shea Park, our Neptune Park, not so big that they can't be moved. Some of the trees are just so huge, which is so sad, but they're just not feasibly movable. But 15 of the trees, and it's roughly just the moving of, and this is not to you, I'm now talking to my peers here. It's roughly about $500 to move a tree. That doesn't include the excavation and all that at the new site. We don't need to worry about filling the hole because you guys are moving everything all over the place, right? You're taking down hills and all the kinds of stuff. So we wouldn't have to worry about the repair. What we're hoping is if the council agrees, of maybe looking down this path, having Mark and Owen and others maybe talk to, it's the tree moving guy that's right there at the corner, who is a member of the community who's offering a good deal to save these trees because he's seen these trees all these years too, right?
We should get Rick and Parks.
Yeah, Rick and Parks involved too. Do the digging of the hole at the new site, and that could save us money using internal resources versus hiring that out. But they will obviously dig a hole for us. Is that something from a council's perspective you would be interested in maybe doing some more research, maybe having Mark and Owen help with that?
So one of the challenges with moving trees that are really old and mature is their survival rate is very low.
The tree mover said 80 to 90% survival rate, but he wouldn't guarantee it. And
Right. But on that, it's going to depend on conditions. So if we were doing this like a couple weeks ago when it was 100 every day, really low.
But I'm not asking that.
So
a couple weeks
I
ago
think
today.
going forward, I think we could certainly look at it. And I think it's an option that if the council directs us, we'd be happy to
I think
pursue.
if we could spend $500 moving a tree that's, you know, fairly mature sports complex, that's $500 a piece. I think that's.
They charge us $500 a tree, Mark, and the
It
tree
seems like
was
a good
this big
option to look into.
at the sports complex. So
Maybe we move them to the sports complex, have a little shade to start.
just wouldn't be able to move them because they were doing all the moving. Working around the trees would be difficult. So that's why getting them, because they can't handle a lot of construction around them. But so what we would need to work with this, UDOT with is that when you are moving people off of the east side, if we could get in there and pull those before you start tearing down all the trees, it'd be best if we went in and pulled the trees we wanted. He said it would take 2 to 2.5 days to get all the trees, but that's only in certain sections. There's all these other areas that obviously, but I know it would affect your staging and timing. So we have been working wide. They've got green and yellow. So your yellow is the ones that you were removing. If it has green and yellow paint, then those are the ones that we were potentially trying to save. And I know that the residents would really love to see us try and save those trees too. And I mean, we have trees in our parks. Neptune Park, I think we replaced over 85 trees and spent over $60,000 on trees. So I'm okay taking a risk at $500 a tree for 15 trees to save. I mean, I think these are about the biggest that we can go. Anything bigger than that, the spading didn't work. And Shelley, you know a little bit more about this because the root system is too wide and it's too traumatic. I've seen trees that this company has moved, bigger trees than this even, just personal use, people buying his trees that are even bigger than these he's moving, and they've survived nicely. So.
Edwards. Mark Edwards, Rick.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate
you.
the update. Hopefully we can have you back for another one.
Yep. Perfect. Plan on it.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments. If you're here for one of the public hearing items on the agenda, normally I'd read them, but it's a half a page.
Sorry, I had a request from the people speakers, and it doesn't sound like it's very loud out here either.
We've been working on.
So they can't hear. Oh, sorry, you already are aware. I
Yeah, we're
apologize.
trying to get it running.
Okay.
So public input, like I said, there's public hearing items. Save your comments for the public hearing items. Is anybody here for other public input at this time? If so, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes. Please be respectful in your comments, and please avoid repetitive comments. Is anybody here for the public input portion? Seeing none, I will close the public input. We will move to reports. We'll start with Councilman.
I have no reports.
Councilwoman Barch.
Mark and I attended the Legislative Policy Committee meeting, and Stephen came also. And we had several land use issues that are going to be coming up again that we're just going to be watching and keeping an eye on. So it's just a little bit more of the same, what we saw last year again. Yeah.
Okay. Councilman McComber.
I don't. Mine was the trees. Thank you.
Councilman Wilden.
I'll just reverse how Shelley said. I went with Mark and she came. No, that's fine. I don't have any updates.
Okay. The only thing I had was I've had a couple residents from the Saratoga Springs development using their roads, and there's been a few arguments with neighbors trying to crash through. They didn't know if there was a way that the city could put out something explaining those roads are private roads, and it's
They literally drove up on private grass,
because they think it's a public street. It's being closed. So is there any education we can do to so we don't have problems between neighbors.
Well, we can do education, but it doesn't mean we're not going to have problems between neighbors. So, but yeah, we'll happily work on something.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mark, do you have anything from administration before we move to the city council vacancy?
Not at this time.
Okay, we'll move to city council vacancy.
Easily do that. So we had a vacancy on city council with the passing of Bud Podeska in July. We have opened that up for applications, and we received 4 applications for that. Those were included in your packet. At this point, we need the council to narrow that field to 2 candidates, and then we'll bring them back for a interview with the city council on the 29th. And so with that, Cindy has prepared some quick ballots that she can distribute to you. If you would just select 2 people. Okay. Each of you select 2 people, and then pass those down to Cindy. Then we'll let her tally those, and then we'll make known who's going to be moving forward into the interviews next council meeting.
Would you mind, just for the audience, kind of giving council and myself had a chance to review all of these?
I apologize. Sure. And I apologize, I've been having some trouble with Dropbox. So the challenge that we have is when a vacancy occurs, state code has been set up so that anyone that is interested in filling the position, if they're qualified, meeting the same requirements that a candidate would need if they were running for office, they may then apply for the open position. There's a caveat. If the vacancy occurs before people can file for an election, then that seat would just be voted on as part of the election process. If it occurs after that period has closed, then it becomes this application process. State code, and I had an interesting conversation, state code just stipulates that there's 2 processes. If within 30 days if you move to fill the vacancy within 30 days, then you have to interview every candidate, whereas if it's after the 30 days, you narrow it down like the code requires us to do as we've got in front of us. And so it's basically a timing thing. I think typically vacancies do not occur kind of as we've had, and so it's usually people move something along those lines. So it's a little bit different process. We have the 4 people that filled out applications. Cindy, do you have their names? And so at this point, we'll distribute the ballots for the council unless there's any other.
Just as a note from the council had discussed the vacancy, and you kind of mentioned the 2 processes. We had opted to wait 30 days out of respect for Bud. Like you said, people move or people leave the city or whatever, and we have heads up. We start that process usually before they leave. But with the passing of a friend and colleague, we felt that we weren't anxious to fill this while the family had a chance to mourn. Okay.
And just for the audience's sake, the applications were forwarded onto the council about a week ago, and so they've had a chance to review all of the resumes that were submitted as well as the information that was submitted, and that was also part of the packet. So.
There was a request from the council, just for the audience, those that are candidate put their application in. If they're here, if they please stand, people can see. Okay. Sweet. Leah and Ryan. Beska. Okay. Get a vote.
Yeah, I find it's an interesting process too, because the mayor actually doesn't get a vote on this at all. In fact, if there's a tie, we actually draw lots, which is really interesting. It's not a normal tie-breaking process that he gets.
So, tallying these ballots, what we can accomplish has taken a couple weeks at the county level. I'm just going to say that. a city I worked for, Washington Terrace, they actually had a mayoral vote with an exact tie, and multiple recounts. It came back down to them casting lots. They had to ask the state what casting lots meant, and it said you could draw a card, you know, open a clean deck of cards. It could be the highest card. It could be throwing dice. It could be all kinds of different things. They opted to give each candidate or each of the participants a clean pack of dice that hadn't been opened. They then opened it, selected 2 dice, they rolled the dice, and it came down to 1 dot on 1 dice in determining who the mayor was. So,
Wow.
and he's still the mayor. And he's still the mayor. Alan is still there. I believe he's been 16 or going on 20 years or something like that. It's crazy. But 1 dot in a lot casting environment. So.
Okay. So we'll have them at the next council for a public interview, correct, Cindy? Yeah. 20 minutes. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. There's a few items on the agenda tonight. I'm going to change a few items up. We're going to table item 9. We're still working out some details of purchase and sale agreement. The next item I'd like to move up is item 8 from the business items, and then the item 1, the planning commission appointment. So we'll go with item 8. I think it's you, Gordon.
So this item is just an advisory, informational item. Due to the concerns that we've had with the access to Dalmore Meadows along Redwood Road there, at the council's direction, we've begun a process to find an engineer to design a segment of road from Pioneer Crossing up to provide an alternate access to that location, and also to design a sidewalk along Redwood Road to connect the west side of Dalmore down to the intersection of Pioneer and Redwood. The proposals for the Riverside Drive portion, I should be receiving those on Thursday, and the proposals for the sidewalk is a less formal process, and I'm working with Jeremy on that.
And real quickly on the sidewalk, UDOT is working on an agreement whereby they will reimburse us for the cost of acquisition for land, if any, as well as construction on that. The problem is it's very time consuming for their processes, and so in entering into an agreement with us, it will allow us to move forward with front. UDOT has agreed to do a couple of different things at our request. So they are studying the Market Street signal that's underway with the hope that it would be a project that would be completed in the next month or two. I don't want to speak for them, so I'm going to be vague. They also agreed to begin doing a traffic study for Market Street and Pioneer Crossing, so the opposite end of that, so that we have good traffic flow on both ends. And then they've also agreed to go back and do a traffic study as well on Pioneer Crossing at Riverside Drive.
Right, what we're doing.
So those are things that they're working on.
And they're going to take into account our adding a road.
They're doing it based on future projected traffic counts, as well as kind of all of the changing environments for that. So
Luke, make sure you guys drive a lot.
From that, we are moving forward with the engineering contract a little out of our typical process, so you are aware. We are going out for the RFP. Based on what those bids come back, we'll come back and do a budget amendment for that. I'm requesting that tonight that you would give us authorization to enter into that contract and get that rolling rather than waiting until the first meeting in September to award that contract. So this is a little bit unique, and so we ask for that so that we can move forward with that. And then on that same front, just so everyone is aware, there is on our floodplain map wetlands right behind Dalmore Meadows, and so that's going to be one of those things that's a critical indicator for us because to exit off of the backside of that neighborhood, it's an area that's very sensitive, and so we need to get the engineers out there studying it right now before conditions change too much, so that hopefully we can get some sort of core to be able to move forward in the spring. So there's a lot of moving parts. We're working towards that resolution, and so we'd ask for your consideration and approval tonight.
Timetable when you'd have this resolution back to us with numbers and.
As far as for approving an engineer, if you willing to delegate that to me tonight, you can delegate that, and then we would come back as part of a budget amendment.
We just need to get this moving quicker.
Yeah,
As
we
far
would.
as the cost of the road, we're not gonna know that until December, something like that.
Yep.
Till engineering's done.
That's when we'd have an engineer's estimate.
We've got rough estimates, but those don't get really good until you start getting what, is it 60–80%?
But if
Yeah.
we delegate it to you to
We'll
get
come
an
back with the-
engineer, they come back with pricing in December, we could have it out for bid, so they're breaking ground in spring.
that would be the ideal.
And that's what Mark's alluding to with the wetlands. It's, so it might seem like we have a lot of time, but the critical item of the wetlands, the Army Corps won't act on that, once we get so far into the winter. They will just say, we're not showing up until spring. So we need them here before winter comes on the.
How confident are you we'll have them here before winter?
I'm optimistic.
Optimistic is in not a snowball's chance, or?
No, I think there's a good chance.
I would,
Okay.
you know, the public safety aspect, I mean, really play that with them too, that this is an urgent issue. This isn't just future planning, we're just trying to build a road, you know, help them understand the urgency of that too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So that's the request for tonight. I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you might have from council.
Well, I give you my approval to go. Yeah.
Do it for now.
Shelley, Chris, you okay with them?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
This is fast. I know, folks. Doesn't sound fast, but we're trying. It's just hard. There's a lot of laws that we have to follow when we're doing these things. So apologize.
You will see a budget amendment probably in the next budget amendment to cover the cost of that engineering.
Thank you.
But we won't exceed my spending limit by that time.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
Just with regard to what Michael's comment, not only the wetlands, but securing a new permit to discharge stormwater to the Jordan River. Those things take time.
That's another one. Yeah.
How many other agencies are we trying to deal with that aren't ours?
I'll find another if you want.
No.
No, we're good if that's
He's
it.
been in contact with the UN over this.
Our
So-
stormwater is better than Utah lake water, so they should stop complaining.
So, Mayor and Council, on that UDOT sidewalk issue, again, we'd like to move forward with that, fast tracking it. And so you're going to have got your blessing to move forward. Depending on what the cost is, it may come in under my authority to be able to do that. If that's the case, I'll move forward based on our current budget policy. But then if it's exceeding that, then I'll make sure we come back to you prior to eclipsing what I'm allowed to do.
Perfect.
Well, and if that means we come in for 10 minutes, again, let's get the sidewalk in
before
winter.
it's too late this year. Okay. Perfect. Okay, Mark, do you need anything else from the council on that? Okay, we'll go to business item number 1, Planning Commission appointment. We had a commissioner vacate seat. He was called to serve an LDS mission in Japan. So that's left a vacancy on the Planning Commission. Historically, in the past, the right to do it where we go out and we do some interviews. I have the Mayor Pro Tem, and the last time we had an appointment, it was Mayor Pro Tem Wilden. This time it's Porter, and this time also we had some really good applicants. I invited the Planning Commissioner Chair Kirk Wilkins to join us as we went and did some interviews. He brought some insights as to what Planning Commission would need to keep things moving, what expertise we were kind of lacking, or what things we would need. I know David gave some input through Mark, and anyways, I'll let Chris talk for a minute, and then I would like to have Brianna Brush come up if you want to have a seat, and then we'll let the council ask some questions.
Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. Both of the candidates were just outstanding. But I think all of us agreed that given where our city's at and the needs that our city's facing, with just the growth, we wanted somebody with some expertise, which Brianna possesses. Her background is in urban design or
Urban planning.
Urban planning, there you go.
Urban Public Administration.
So she's very well qualified to be able to speak to these subjects, and she's ready to really hit the ground running, I think. And so, as well as I think she brings a different viewpoint, represents a newer part of the city, and so I think that's also a benefit to the city. So,
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll let the council ask questions?
Absolutely. As Councilman Porter said, I just received my master's in public administration with an emphasis in urban planning from Arizona State, which is where I'm originally from. Before that, I went to Boise State and got my bachelor's degree in economics. And yes, go Broncos. I moved here to Saratoga Springs last November, bought a house, and my first house, so I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this new and growing city and get my start here as well. Legacy Farms.
On the hot seat for a minute.
Bring it on.
I just wondering, what are some of the challenges that you see, and how would you, how do you see us, I guess?
Certainly. One of the major problems I see us facing in the next few years especially is just growing smart, making sure we have a healthy balance of meeting our economic needs as well as our housing needs. And then how to tackle that is just following our general plan and making sure that we are meeting all the citizens' needs at the same time.
Councilman McComber?
So this is a little bit of a loaded question, but the Planning Commission has a certain role within the city, and the City Council has our role. What is the role of the Planning Commission versus the City Council? Do you know the difference?
The Planning Commission is more of an advisory role to the council, where the council is a policy-making body.
She passes. Absolutely. So we pass the ordinance, but we would love recommendations. If you see an ordinance that is called as a recommendation that we can review, I love it. We've had other commissioners who've done that as well, and that's absolutely helpful. And with your background, if you see something in the code that you're like cringing that you're having to send forward a positive recommendation because that shouldn't be in code, we would love to know that. I know we would love to know that. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Councilman Wilden?
This is a little bit unique for me. I actually interviewed you a year ago.
Yes. Yeah, quite a while ago.
If you remember, if you don't, that
Yes.
means I'm forgettable.
I remember.
No, and you did very well, and you answered a lot of questions, and I'm really happy to see that you stuck with the commitment to the city and tried once, and we just didn't have enough spots, and you came back and got a spot for you. So thank you for sticking with us. And an interesting story is we almost didn't get to interview you because we took
Room.
I found you out in the parking lot wandering around.
Thank goodness. Thank you for having me here today, and I'm excited to be involved.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that. I don't have it up in front of me. Maybe someone.
I'll do. I move that we approve the appointment to the Planning Commission, Resolution R17-78, dated today, appointing Brianna. If I pronounce this incorrectly, please correct me. Brianna Brush to the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission, with the term ending 2018.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Councilman Wilden. Any other discussion?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Welcome to a lot of late nights.
We're not always unanimous. That's cool.
Oh, good.
And I believe Dave's talked to you about attending a meeting and then getting packet and start going through and getting up to speed. And Dave, I don't know if you set time aside to kind of go over a community plan, what the residents' vision is.
I'll be there.
So we went out and got a survey from residents on what the vision of Saratoga Springs should look like, and that's what the council and planning commission is trying to drive to, is the feedback that was given from the residents as to what we're doing, our strategic plan. So yeah, if you can get with some of our planning staff and get up to speed on that, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, isn't this item 2 or? Okay. Business item number 2, the Utah County Communities of Care Amendment, Resolution R17-83. Communities of Care did a great kind of kickoff to the program about a month and a half ago. I had the opportunity to attend along with a lot of our staff and some the council from Eagle Mountain and their staff and some local community leaders from church and business. And it was a good program. It was good to see the impact it has on the communities. It was interesting and maybe I'm still in your thunder, it was interesting on the part about attachment to the community, how that affects youth and being a very young community. We're not third or fourth generation. We're growing. We're 20 years old. We're kind of just hitting some of generation 2 coming in the city, and different ways that we can create that bond to the city. I thought that was interesting. Made me look as we went to some other city days this year around the community. You'd get there and there'd be 4 generations there for the fireworks, and here we're still kind of on generation 1 and 2. So we look forward to it. I don't know if you have more to add to the Communities of Care. It's been a great program. Councilman McCombers sat on the board in the past for it.
I love this program. I mean, I haven't been as involved recently, but this is a fantastic program that really does help educate on, especially I think, some of the key programs, right? Taking back the drugs out of the homes, like the prescription drugs. I think that's a huge benefit to the community, as well as just educating on what our high-risk areas are. I think sometimes we assume certain things, and it's not always the case, and I think it's a little more eye-opening happens through the programs. Thanks.
See David here.
I'll
We
make
get
sure
that
he
on the
knows.
website for those who want to be involved. We gave a list of names that day at the training, but I know there's more people that would like to be involved, and probably those of us in that attendance knew the names of. So, thank you.
So Mayor, Council, on this is just renewing the agreement that we have to annually. Nothing's changed, just new year.
Chris, you're a liaison with the schools now. Maybe this is even something that can go in like their little newsletter that they do, like their weekly newsletter. If we could maybe, because then the community, I don't know, it'd be a good coverage than just the website. Thanks. Through the PTAs mostly do those newsletters, I think. But
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Utah County Communities that Care Agreement, Resolution R17-83, dated today.
I'll second that.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barch, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Do a roll call. Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I've got Coach calling all sorts of number signs from the side. What number are you talking about?
I wanted you to steal third, Mayor.
Okay.
No, actually, if we can jump into the public hearings, that would be great. We've got what looks like several people here for several items for tonight's meeting.
Okay, so just start. We'll start with a public hearing, fiscal year 2017-2018 budget amendments, resolution R17-81.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. This is our second budget amendment for fiscal year 2018, and a large portion of this amendment in the general fund is to create a new department. The new department will be called the Information Technology Services. It is split from our engineering department and partly from the administration department as well to create this department. On top of that, we are requesting a new engineer too for engineering department, and we're also requesting a truck for recreation because they brought in more revenues last fiscal year than they expended. So he's asking for specifically about the same amount that we brought in more in revenues. There is a
Really, he's just asking for equipment to keep the program running.
for their full-time, they have a full-time coordinator now that he
Yeah,
needs
the
a vehicle.
program's been great.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then also, there is a budget amendment in there for Riverside Drive. This is the preliminary budgeted number for that in our road impact fees as well. And then also for our 5-year CIP to increase that to what our fund balance increased this last year there, and that is to be used for the purchase of the land for our municipal complex. So, is there any questions?
Oh, we'll do the public hearing really quick. And
Okay.
anybody here for comments on the budget amendments? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public council.
I just have one. In the formation of an IT department, like I'm completely supportive of that. I think it might be value add for the IT folks to just keep track generally of how much time they're servicing each different department. As the city grows, I think it'd be important, not necessarily now, but as it grows, that IT costs some type of allocation or hitting the right areas. So if it's spending a lot of time in planning or engineering, maybe perhaps meters or whatever, that could become part of some of the other fee analysis.
Or Mark's computer.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth the time right now because of the size, but just something to keep in mind as the city grows and we have things with the growth.
And that's a great comment. And we can also track that with the work order software that we have in place as we're tracking the so it won't be basically activity-based costing or something like that, but it will give us a good indicator for that.
Yeah, it's just if like they're spending a whole bunch of time in the waters department, that should pay for part of it.
Actually, it's quite a bit of time keeping your computer up and running.
I mean, just to piggyback on his comment too, the industry I work in is IT outsourcing, and a large portion of our clients are municipalities, state governments. If we ever went down that path, I'd recuse myself. But the biggest thing is the reason why cities are outsourcing when they get to a certain size, to your point, is the cost efficiency of economies of scale of outsourcing that. Is essentially, saves hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road as we get bigger and bigger. But just to keep that in mind as we grow.
Motion.
I'll move that we approve business item we're not business item, public hearing number 1 at fiscal year 2017-18 budget amendments, resolution R-1781 dated today.
I'll second that.
We have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion on the table? Do a roll call. Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have Tim's subdivision, general plan amendment, rezone, concept plan, Boyd Brown applicant.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As just stated, this is a request for a general plan at 23 acres in the northern part of the city. This is north, and it's located just very far north of the city. The current, this was just barely updated to match the proposal, but previously this was neighborhood commercial with a business park in the back. The current zoning is agricultural. The requested general plan and zones are regional commercial to the front. This is Redwood Road, and Lehigh would be right about here, and office warehouse in the rear. As part of the request, the applicant is asking for input on a concept plan. The concept plan and some possible storage units, some flex space, and a possible convenience store located on the corner. On July 27th, 2017, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. Staff recommends approval of this particular item with one condition, just to point out. Staff would like input from the council on the expiration number of years before the pioneering agreement and those agreements would pioneering agreement would expire. In speaking to Kevin Thurman, we average about 5 years on most agreements, but it could be longer if the council feels that to be adequate. Alternative 1 is continuance, alternative 2 is denial. And if you have any further questions.
Okay.
Good
Do you
evening,
have
Mayor and
anything you want to?
Council.
add before we open the public hearing, or?
No, I don't think so. Just, we've been working through this. You guys have seen this rendition of the site plan. We're excited to get started on it and start to work on our development agreement.
Okay. Well, if you want to wait and after, we'll do some comments, so you can just stay seated there, and we'll open this up for public hearing. Is anybody here for the Tim subdivision general plan amendment rezone concept plan, Boyd Brown applicant? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We'll start with Councilwoman Barch.
So I was grateful to see layout in your materials, Kara, because in our packet, it was just the old layout.
Was it?
Yeah, we only had the one with the old
Apologize. I
townhouse
thought I
in
got
there.
all
So,
of them there.
I mean, we'd seen it before, so I knew what to expect. I just didn't see it. And in all the wording, the verbiage all matched the new current layout, so it's okay.
So the one you saw still had the residential piece in it.
Yeah, so we
which
kinda
was
went,
something, yeah. I know that was something.
So no, this is great. I don't have a problem with this. We've talked about this before, that I think that this is a much better layout. I think it's gonna flow better and work better. On the length of the agreement, we generally do 5 years, so is there a purpose for doing the 8 years instead? What's the request? Is that your request? Is that our request?
Part of it is it could be a little bit longer than 5 years for the surrounding area to develop.
Meaning those interior lots, or which?
The interior lot to the, a little bit to the south.
Okay.
I would like to request that 8 years, partially what she just said. This is a fairly green site. There's a major infrastructure impact that we're working through on the development agreement and some pioneering, and there's ground on both sides of the street that will benefit. Some of the services we're providing will be a benefit to up to 200 acres. And so just for that to develop, it seems like a little bit longer term would be appropriate.
I'm okay with that then.
Councilman Porter?
I had the same concerns about the map in our packet. I was like, why is the residential back in there? But I'm glad to see that it's the plan that was presented is what we were talking about. So I have no problem with that. I look forward to it, and I'm fine with the 8 year sunset.
I'm comfortable with the 8 years. You know, the question is to maybe staff in this pioneering agreement. I'd like some stipulations where we're not putting stuff on the east side of the canal 8 years in advance. Like, I don't necessarily want to get into build it. I mean, I understand that's the purpose of the pioneering agreement, but is there possibility to have certain stipulations that need to be met before we? I'm just not sure in all the timing and everything.
Yeah, so I think that's a great request. I would throw this to you, Boyd. What's your phasing plan for the project?
Some of it is market driven. Our phasing, our first priority is the very north end of the property, and in order to service that, we do need, there's quite a bit of water that has to get there, sewer and even storm drain. But we won't, unless we're going to break ground on the east side of the canal, we won't be putting any infrastructure in there. Based on this, our current plan is, if we can, we would like to come out of the ground sometime in spring of 2018 on the storage units and the retail property on along Redwood. So in that case, we may need to, but we certainly wouldn't request putting any infrastructure in until we're ready to use it.
And to clarify, and I didn't explain this very well, my concern was more on the east side of the canal, because I just wouldn't want us as a city to get financially committed to that and then and we're partially dependent on our decision on potential sales tax revenue, infrastructure in there, and then having it sit for 5 years at the city. So as long as there's, and this is something Kevin could work out, I'd be comfortable as long as there's something in there that has certain stipulations that protects both you as well as the city.
Councilman McComber?
Great, I think that's wonderful too. Basically, you're saying though that you're not going to put infrastructure in on the east side until you're ready to go there. Yeah. Is what you're saying. So then that, if we can get that in writing, that's what you're getting.
Yep.
At. Perfect. I would agree.
I'd like to define ready to go.
Right.
You know, this is so, not, it doesn't have to be right now.
Usually 12 months is ready to go. But so then, for me, the eight years is fine as well. I'm okay with the 8 years. I'll start with that. For me, The only thing I get nervous about is when we use generic terms like flex space. I just want to make sure that that defined, you know, that doesn't mean industrial, heavy industrial, you know, it needs to really be flex in nature. The storage units is a good example of good flex space, but just when it's so broad like that, it just makes me uncomfortable. I want to be a good neighbor to Lehigh because you're bordering on Lehigh, so I want to make sure that we're not just putting our worst stuff right there, just as much as I hope Lehigh would do the same, or Eagle Mountain to that point. So that's really the only concern I have, is just that generic term. If we can get some structure around that, and I'm sure you'll be able to discuss that when you're working through the agreement. But thank you. Looking forward to that retail space. Exciting. Okay, you got to let us know as soon as you can what it's going to be, so that'd be fun.
Anything else? Do you have anything to add, or? Okay,
No.
with that, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve the Tim subdivision general plan amendment, rezone concept plan, Boyd Brown applicant, 2582 North Wedwood Road, ordinance 17-20, dated today.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, a second from Councilman Porter. Any
And
further?
with the 8 years. Sorry.
And Wilderness.
Would you be willing to accept some type of amendment about our city attorney working out an agreement so the parameters around when
I think that's the next step, right, is the development agreement?
Yeah, if we can figure that out in the development agreement, that would be
So if we
best.
could, so basically, per Councilman Wilden's concerns, if we can just make sure that the development agreement has those stipulations. Thank you. And that?
Yeah.
Okay, I have an amended first and second. Any further discussion? Councilman Porter?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Sergeant Court, yes, thank you. That was the quickest I think we've had you on the hot seat.
Run.
Okay, Sergeant Court PUD Phase 1 Plat Amendment, Exchange of Property, Nathan Smith applicant, 19-21.
Mayor and Council, thank you for your time. So this has been discussed previously by the council during concept plan, but now it's actually here before you. As part of the Peak Square Retail Site Plan Project, which you'll see later on this meeting, the plat amendment is proposed for Sergeant Court to combine lots 103 and lots 104 of the Sergeant Court PUD Phase 1 plat. Sergeant Court is located along Redwood Road. Zooming in just a little bit, you can see lots 103 and 104 that will be are proposed to be combined. Here you have the proposed plat amendment. We have Redwood Road and then the proposed lots. On July 27th, 2017, the Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council. Here you have the proposed proposed conditions as well as the recommended motion, which is approval. Again, it's just part of this. Dave, could you go back one slide for me? Thank you. This area right here is currently city owned, and as part of that, it will be transferring from the city to incorporate into their project for landscaping and other types of things. In exchange with that, there is an agreement, and this property owner will be maintaining this area, and it will no longer be city owned or maintained. Your alternatives include continuance or denial. And the applicant is here if you have any questions.
If the applicant would like to take a seat, do you have anything you'd like to add before we open the public hearing? No. Okay. We'll open the public hearing on the Sergeant Court PUD Phase 1 Plat Amendment, Exchange of Property. Anybody here for the public hearing on this? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we'll start with Wilden. Councilman McComber.
Can you go back one slide real quick without the alternatives? Actually, thank you. So the annual cost of maintaining this property by the city currently is about $4,534. Is that correct? So then that would be taken off the books for the city because they'll then now be maintaining it?
Yes, that's correct.
That's a win-win for me. We could move some trees. Here's our budget for the tree moving now, right? No, with all joking aside, combining the plats makes sense. It makes it it's more developable. It makes it easier. Your setbacks, all of that, all makes sense. Doing this a little while, so I understand why you're trying to do that. And then also getting the green, your open space with that. So you'll be maintaining it, but you're also getting open space credit, which is great, win-win. So I love it when the private and the public sector can come together and make a better product for the city. You guys can do here and make it prettier along Redwood Road. So thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch.
Agree? Yeah, no, it's great. It makes sense. It's perfect, and we'll discuss the retail later, unless we want to do it the same. Which we could.
Councilman Porter.
I'll just echo the other council members. I think it's great that we can work with a developer to bring in a great product to the city and at the same time save the taxpayers some money. So.
Okay. Well, I will entertain a motion on public hearing item 4.
I move that we approve
3, sorry.
Sergeant Court
getting through here.
I was going to read the right one. Sergeant Court PUD Phase 1 Plat Amendment, Exchange 19 to 21 West Sergeant Court, Resolution R1782, dated today, approving the Redwood Road Trail transfer of ownership. Does that cover both of them?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter. I have a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Do a roll call. Councilwoman Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and if you want to stay seated, we'll jump to your other item.
We don't see PUDs very much anymore. It's sort of crazy when we. Yeah, it's the leftover. Yeah. 9-6. Yeah.
Yes.
We got rid of PUDs in this city. It's so 2000. It's so early 2000s.
Okay. Business item 4, while we've got this project on our mind. You can pass it.
Actually, have Gordon
Wilden
stand
likes
there
to-
and hold it, would you?
Look at that, Gordon.
No, Gordon, we want the.
Oh, will you hit escape so I can jump? Dave, will you hit escape on the keyboard so I can jump past Maverick? Escape.
Gordon, if you just want to pass that before the Councilman Porter's trying to look closer at it. Yeah. Thank you, Gordon.
Okay. Sorry, we'll just scroll down quickly.
Small sample.
Oh, it's something that just fell off. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So as
I
this,
don't know what that is.
You don't know what that
Oh.
is?
it fell.
We don't have a missing spot on
It
this
fell off
puzzle.
of ABC actually.
Okay.
Yes, it fell off of ABC. Sorry.
ABC.
Just grabbed it. It was next to it. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The applicant is requesting approval of a site plan and conditional use permit for a commercial building. Again, same location as we just discussed, same lots. Oh, here's the proposed site plan in court here. You would see the parking lot, and the first part of the building would be, they're going to build the building at once, but this is the first office that would come through. That's part of the conditional use, yes. Proposed site plan. I will point out there was one change made between Planning Commission and now, and that was to meet one of the conditions of approval. They did extend the fence all the way to the property line. So if you're looking through the planning commission minutes, that was one change that came from that. It kind of juts around this little thing right here, and then it comes straight up and around the detention pond. Yep.
Block wall against the storage unit area, does that create an awkward spot for that HOA where it's not got very good visibility?
It could potentially, but that is a wall required by code. So unless we're willing to change the code, we can't undo that.
Taking notes back there.
All right, similar with the previous item, July 27th, the Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council. With that, there's a discussion item in your packet, and that's for the southern sidewalk. Right here, the Development Review Committee recommended this sidewalk through here. After discussion with the Planning Commission, they deemed that a little unsafe due to the steep slopes through the area, and they recommended that the City Council strike that particular condition. So the City Council has the option to keep that as a struck item or to put that item back in. As part of that, there is a second item of discussion, and that's the screening of utility equipment. So there's a box right here, which if the sidewalk does not go in, it is effectively screened. If the sidewalk does go in, then additional screening would be required between that sidewalk and that unit, just based on perspectives. Moving on, since you saw this as a concept level, they did change their elevations. So they do have the pitched roofs now to match a little closer with the Sergeant Court buildings. Here's the other side, you can still see the pitch. Signage packets, this doesn't reflect in any way their architectural standards. This is just the signage itself to show you kind of what it will look like when they add their signage to the northern side of their building. Staff recommends approval on this item. Jumping ahead, there are two conditions that the Planning Commission added. One, that the ADA stalls be located as close as possible to those northern doors, and that the logo, Saratoga logo, be removed from the proposed lighting poles. Again, you do have two alternatives, continuance or denial. Yes? So let me jump back and I can kind of show you. So, am I updated on this one? Yeah, you can see the difference between, so it was here in the landscaping packet, and they updated their site plan, so now they're here.
Do you have anything you want to add before the council has?
No, hopefully we've put together something that everybody can live with and be happy with.
Have comments, Councilman Comber?
I'm okay with removing the sidewalk. Based on the comments, I did not go and walk it, but if it is really steep, it defeats the purpose of the sidewalk for wheelchairs anyway, and you have the access point in the north that will get you. It makes more sense.
Yeah, it was about 3 feet from the corner of the building down, and so I'm just afraid it would become a skateboard ramp, and Redwood Road's right there.
So true. Let me just tell you, so true. And then you'd be having to put all these like speed bump things in, and it would be like, and then therefore the screening is no longer an issue because I'll meet the screening requirements. For me, again, by combining, this is a good example of why combining those makes it look better, because the building was able to be one nice building with all the different elevation changes versus having a small building up here and another building here and eating up parking and having all these people drive around. You can make it more organized. So that's the value. Just there's a lot of people here that normally aren't here, just trying to help them understand the value of why combining the two plots 10 minutes ago was a value. Again, I'm excited to see what else comes, and make sure if it's anything really fun, let us know. Doctor's offices are, we have plenty of those, but no, thanks.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to thank you for addressing the elevations and the architecture, per the code, making it fit with the PUD and the surrounding areas. I really appreciate that, so thank you. It's gonna look very nice.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Kara, which was the condition we needed to take out for the sidewalk? I didn't see it in there. It was already struck, so we can just leave it as it is. Okay, perfect.
Oh, because now it is because the sidewalk's gone.
Okay. I will move that we approve, and I just totally lost it for, thank you. And CUP, Nathan Smith applicant, 1921 West Sergeant Court, including striking of condition number 6, the screening of the utility and pedestals.
Yeah, the first from Councilwoman Barch.
Including all other findings and conditions, did I not? Sorry.
You didn't.
No.
It's been a long day. We moved today at work, so it's been a long day.
I'll second that.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barch, second from Councilwoman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion on the table? Do a roll call. Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
So when are you thinking of starting?
We're gonna submit to the building department tomorrow. And
Oh, right away. Good luck.
We wanted to start, yeah.
No,
So
you
April.
probably wanted it a little sooner.
Okay.
Great, good luck.
Thanks so much. Okay, we will jump back to public hearing item number 4, Green Impact Fee Facilities Plan, IFFP, and the amended Storm Water Impact Fee Analysis, IFA, Ordinance 17-21.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You know, as time goes on, conditions change in the city, and it requires amendments and updates to our capital facilities plans and impact fee facilities plans. And so we've seen a need to amend our, you're going to see an update here in a couple months, but for now this is an amendment to our impact fee facilities plan. And we have the consultant here who prepared this amendment and is here to speak to us and answer questions.
So my name is Keith Larson with Bowen Collins and Associates. We prepared the original impact fee study, and we'll go through this really quick. Basically, we kept the structure of the impact fee study the same. However, the data that was 2015, and it was actually based on growth projections that stem back to 2013. And so a number of things have changed. So if you flip to the next, there we go. So we really had 2 areas that we wanted to update here or amend. One is we had some accelerated development as a result of annexation, and then we've also completed quite a few projects since this was done, and we wanted to get those projects updated and as accurate as possible. So go next. The area of accelerated development is that area just east of the river. In 2013, we did not have any growth planned there in the 10-year window. As you know, with annexation, there's been some additional development pressure in that area. So what we did was we looked at that area, next please, added some facilities, some new outfalls to the Jordan River as well as to Utah Lake as shown there. Go to the next slide. Those
so by the way, the yellow lines are catchment area boundaries, and the blue lines are proposed pipelines.
Amended plan looks like is basically exactly the same, except you can see that we've added 3 projects in the 10-year window to account for projected growth in that area. There are 2 other projects, but those were deemed to be outside the 10-year planning window. If we go to the next one. So then all the red boxes highlight areas where you have completed projects over the past 3 or 4 years since the plan came out, and so those were all updated based on actual construction costs. There were a couple areas that went down, but the majority of costs have been going up a little bit, so overall costs were a little higher than planned. So we take those two changes, we put them into the document, and the next page, at $16.49 per acre, or if you look at about a 2/10 of an acre lot, that works out to be $329 impact fee. That would increase under the amended fee to $355 for that same size lot, increase of about $25. So that is the proposal and the calculated impact fee under the amendment.
Excuse me?
So to put a primer on this as well, we're going to be doing full-blown redo of our impact fees that's going to be kicking off here. And as you know, we do this quite frequently. We're constantly coming back and revisiting these plans. This is actually one that's sat a little longer than some of the other, as recently as we've seen water and some of the other things.
I don't have much on here. It's pretty straightforward, just updates are going on. A lot to discuss, so thank you for making it short and concise and actual.
I just want to reiterate for those residents that are here, Saratoga Springs, all of our impact fees only cover costs. We don't make profit on our fees. Taxes, that's when you have taxes is when that's revenues for a city to operate, but fees cover costs. And so I appreciate the updated assessment, and then I'm not looking forward to the big full-fledged, it seems like we're always doing some kind of fee schedule, but that's important. It's part of what we have to do. Thanks.
I'll move that we approve the 2070 facilities plan and amended stormwater impact fee analysis or S21.
I'll second. Roll call. Aye.
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 No, it was I helped draft this, and it seemed to me mostly about clarifying the code and making it easy to understand what was happening and how it was being required.
Any discussion from the council? Yes, public hearing. Anybody here for the code amendment for Title VIII? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. It's nice to be working on Title VIII, not Title IX. You have something, Councilwoman Bart?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 items really quickly. Gordon, on the non-irrigated areas, that even in non-irrigated areas, oftentimes we are putting infrastructure in, we're putting sidewalks in, things like that, and you have to go in and reseed, revegetate, even if it's to the native, you still have to revegetate, and that oftentimes takes water in order to get that established. And then once it's established, then you don't have to water. So if we're not going to require water shares to be brought in for that area, how do you then actually water that?
So you're talking about getting vegetation started.
Reestablished.
Yeah, so this section of the code is about taking the water for perpetual use. So what you're describing is a different animal. Not sure it's addressed under this section of the code.
Ideally, not always.
Well, and a lot of times that revegetation is going to occur prior to all of the development coming in. You know, like Mount Saratoga is going to be revegetating prior to the homes that they won't have yet been built. So I mean, I don't know that we're going to run out of water just sprinkling once a week.
I just want to make sure, as long as you're comfortable that we aren't going to have any issues revegetating where we need to revegetate, and And then my other question was on the timing of when the water rights are dedicated and the vesting, and I know there are conversations between you and Kevin on this as well. I am not quite sure. I think I have to agree with Kevin on this one. Where I know, I know, it's terrible. No, I'm just kidding. But it concerns me that we would be allowing vesting to happen and not having that water right required at that same time that vesting occurs. We could get into a situation where they've got vested rights and then they don't dedicate the water rights, and then they walk away from it, and the next person is left holding the bag per se. And I think that's kind of bad form to do. So that concerns me.
Are you speaking of the provision that was recommended in the code that water rights wouldn't be taken until building permit?
Also with multifamily, I believe was the case as well. And we've had enough developers in various times walk away from things and and cause some serious issues that I'd like to make sure that if they're going to get those vested rights, that they also have given those things that they need to in order to make those vested rights function properly.
So I don't know what Kevin's city attorney's comments were with regard to that, so I can't speak to those whatsoever, but my thought process was that the water needs for those types of sites are not fully determined at the time of platting. And while they are determinable at the time of, does that leave someone holding the bag? Well, it's an encumbrance on the property. So if someone were to pick up that property, that would be something they would know that they have to still do to make it happen there. So it would be.
Yeah, so just to kind of follow up and maybe to give a little background for those in the audience that aren't as familiar with this, when the council makes an approval of a project, they make the approval, but the water is not formally dedicated to the city until plat recordation for secondary water, and that's based on the net irrigable acreage, or net irrigated acreage, and then the water right for the homes comes in at the building permit level. And so I think Councilman Barch is requiring requesting is that we have that water right locked up and secured prior to granting a vesting of property rights. And so, it would be different than what we're doing currently to make that requirement, and I don't know the legalities of it.
I guess I can see the difference on the commercial piece. On a residential piece, for example, condominiums, apartments, whatever, where you've got, it's not separate lots or units, but you've got this footprint or however it's going to be. We are going to know at plat their irrigable acreage, and so I think that would maybe be different. So I think I'd probably be okay with keeping the commercial how it is, because I can see that where different tenants are going to have massively different water usage. But I think unless I'm mistaken, townhomes or types of housing like that, we actually do know.
We do know, and again,
is there a reason why we would treat them differently than we would treat a single-family house?
Well, a single-family house, when they record their plat, in the first place, they're going to have that secondary water right dedicated to the city.
Right, but why wouldn't we do that for a townhome, condominium, et cetera? They're going to know at that point, as soon as they record their plat, they're going to know what their footprint is and what it's actually going to be.
They do. For multifamily, they do.
They do as well.
Yeah. At plat recordation.
Because this says for residential development where separate lots or units are not recorded, irrigation water rights are required to be dedicated or procured from the city prior to the issuance of a building permit. So we're changing that.
Sorry. Which document are you looking at?
That would be B. It's
3D.
Yeah, 3B.
3B.
B is in boy. Irrigation secondary water requirement.
Looking at the bottom one?
Yeah.
Or that's the 0%.
The last, what? This one. It's irrigation secondary water requirements.
That's the first paragraph.
I don't have the benefit of reading that.
So as I'm reading this,
if no plat is to be recorded and water rights for the irrigable acreage have not been dedicated or procured from the city in sufficient quantities to meet the requirements of this section.
That's not the same one.
Are you down in B, Shelley?
I'm in B, 3B.
So it says for multifamily development where separate lots / units are not rights are required to be dedicated or to be procured from the city prior to the issuance of a building permit?
Yes.
Okay.
So that all hinges on the clause that they're not recorded yet.
Sorry, say that again. We were looking at his.
Yeah, because they're condominium typically. When those come in for their permits is when they're going to trigger that. So we don't make them necessarily build all of their open space for the whole thing because we do it in phases. And so in order to build that phase,
but aren't they platting by phase as well?
They are, and in essence what we're saying is comparable to the phase question with residential. We're letting them basically do their irrigation for that particular phase.
But that's not at permit level, that's at plat level.
But this is saying if there's not a plat recorded. So if we're as you're suggesting.
So I'm thinking of some of the larger condo projects that we've had. We've actually let them come in, and historically they've come in and their water and open space has been taken care of at the plat record or at the building permit level for those different elements. So or it's been phased, and I'm not using the right phrase
So
as
I
far
mean,
as
according to
reporting.
what we're looking at, this is a change because it's all underlined new information. So you're saying that that's how we've been doing it, even though it's not been in our code that way?
We've had, they've come in as part of their phase, and I'm getting the vernacular incorrect because I don't deal with the platting, if you would, issues very often. But, I mean, but fundamentally, like Hillside Condos, they would do their open space with the building that they were building at that time. So, I mean, it is consistent with what we have done. That's most appropriate for that.
So this section of the code was totally rewritten, so it's going to show up as a change, not necessarily as a change in policy, but it's rewritten, and that's why it reflects as a change to what you're looking at. And in many regards, it's just clarification of what we were doing before.
And quite honestly, we're getting to the point where they're going to be buying Central Utah water for their culinary connections anyway. And, you know, the secondary water, they can bring water with them. They can have it dedicated from canal companies and other things. But, you know, that's part of what our impact fees are, our water impact fees are indicating is that, you know, we're coming to the end of having water rights to sell to people. And so this will be consistent with to bring with them water or acquire water through those other methods, which will most likely occur before they're ready to record.
My last thing is down on, my note out of the way, sorry. On 4, it says substantial evidence. What is substantial evidence? So it's required to transfer water rights and quantities determined by engineer based on substantial evidence. That's fairly
That's
fluid.
a legal standard that Kevin put in there to make it very clear in the legal world. Although what the substantial evidence standard is, I could not cite to you this evening.
That's lawyer talk.
It's lawyer talk.
Someplace on
$250 an hour. Anything less if it's not substantial.
Nora, do you recall the substantial evidence standard? I just don't. I don't. Yeah, we got the wrong group of people to answer that technical question tonight. Sorry.
Where's our other attorney to back up for Kevin tonight?
He's not here this evening.
I know that.
Yes.
We have 2 MIA.
MIA.
Okay, Chris. Okay. Okay. I will entertain a motion. I have a first from Councilman Wilden.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Do a roll call. Councilman McComber.
Aye.
Councilwoman Barch. Aye. Councilman Porter.
Aye.
Councilman Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have Councilwoman Barch has stepped out for a minute. We will move on to for Pirelli Meadows annexation, consolidated and rezone to R1-9. Scott Carlson's the applicant. Scott, if you want to come have a seat. You come to one more meeting and we're going to have a seat with your name on it.
Not necessary.
Not necessary.
Christelle.
Yeah.
She was your mom, okay?
Are there 2 items you're here for tonight?
Quickly, we did receive from Lehigh City for items 6 and 7. So we'd like to move forward with the public hearing tonight, conduct the public hearing, although we cannot take action at this point.
Right. What he said, basically. But I will give a little bit of background information since this is a public hearing on the two annexations that we will be taking a look at tonight. The first one is known as the Consolidated Pirelli annexation, and this one has come in over the past several months. Originally, there were some separate properties, and they have consolidated now into one project, which is great. There are five property owners that have all consolidated and have one consolidated annexation petition, which is in everything else. It is immediately adjacent to the McLaughlin annexation, which you folks heard, and there is also a protest filed on that annexation, so it's immediately adjacent to that. The Pirelli annexation consists of 42.46 acres. They're requesting R19 zoning. The concept is for right now, and again, the concept plan that goes with an annexation is very general, but we have a concept plan so that we can get a sense for the kinds of product and what they want to do. And in this case, they want to do single family lots consistent with the R19 zoning. And as I mentioned, it's contiguous to an annexation, and it's up here, this area. This map shows sort of all of the annexations in this area, or many of them. This was the McLaughlin area, which they've been working on revised concept plans as well. And we also know that a hearing has been scheduled before the Utah County Boundary Commission for September 13th on the McLaughlin and Johansson annexations. So that's just sort of a side FYI. But those will be moving forward to a hearing before the Boundary Commission. And then this is the Pirelli area. This is Dry Creek that runs through it. And we've asked that be given to us certainly before preliminary plat or concurrent with preliminary plat that shows us exactly what the floodplain might be and what sensitive lands might be there. So, you know, there may be differences in this plan based upon that. We'll have to see as we get additional information. And then this is the Webb or Lakeview annexation that we'll talk about next. This is kind of on its side, but it's the same. It is a concept plan of that same area. And as I mentioned, it's just over 42 acres. So the process for annexations, I think you're all pretty familiar with, but this particular annexation, the petition was accepted by the City Council on June 20th, annexation petition, and then what happens is it's then certified by the City Recorder, and in between that time they send copies of the information to the county surveyor looks at it, the county recorder looks at it, give comments back, and then modifications are made, which did occur. So the City Recorder certified it on July 20th. That kicks off a 30-day protest period wherein there has to be newspaper notice for 3 consecutive weeks. And that 30-day protest period ended on Sunday, on August 20th. And a protest was filed to the county by Lehigh City on August 17th. And in your of that letter, so you should have gotten that so you can see what that letter says. And then our job is to respond to that protest. And Kevin Thurman, our city attorney, did a response for the McLaughlin and Johansson requests, and he will do a similar response and respond directly to the protest that was filed on this application. And then presumably a boundary commission may have a public hearing on it. We don't know that at this point in time. And we're trying to figure it if we can get it all done on September 13th, but that, we don't know yet. But we are in conversations with Utah County about that. So, because the protest was filed, you cannot take action to approve the petition and assign zoning at this time. So what we would recommend is that you continue action until pending the outcome of the protest filed by Lehigh City. And you do have an option. You could also just reject the petition at this time, and then they would have to reapply after the protest, after things are worked out. That is an option. That's not what the staff's recommending at this time.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add before we go to the public hearing?
Sure, but it'll be really short. Perfect. Hope that's okay.
Wilden enjoys short comments.
Well, I will request an opportunity to respond at the end of the public hearing if there are any comments from the public. But we do appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. We've been here about these issues several times, and we came to several planning commission meetings as well. We're pleased with the concept plan that we have today. We've made several adjustments through the process in an effort to address comments from the public and recommendations from the Planning Commission. We think we've made good progress on making a nice development in this property. We're excited to bring that to fruition. So that you're aware, we talked about 42.46 acres. Part of that includes the existing Saratoga Road right away. So if you were to go through adding up all the parcels, so that you have to add that in to get there. So I guess that's what we're here for, and we're anxious to move forward. We look forward to an opportunity to meet at the county, and we'll plan to attend that when meeting with the county. So
I will see you there.
I'm Larry Jacobson. I'm the developer, and I just wanted to say that I have met with all of the landowners, Larry and Marilyn, Alan, David and Marsh Pirelli, John and Marsh Pirelli, David Pirelli, Daryl Scow, Clay Christensen. We met with all of them together, and it was their choice to come into Saratoga Springs. They had the option to go to Lehigh City or to come into Saratoga Springs. They chose to come this route, and Saratoga Springs has been to us. They have been helpful. We've listened to the residents at the first couple meetings in front of the City Council or the Planning Commission. They had recommended that Evans Street dead end. They didn't want traffic coming through there, so we dead ended the street. We had some larger lots backing up against their property. We listened to the residents and we tried to accommodate them. And this is the direction that the landowners want to go. And I think ultimately it is up to the landowners where their property ends up.
Okay. We will open the public hearing on the Pirelli Meadows annexation, consolidated and rezone, R1-9. Just a reminder, please be respectful in your comments. Please state your name and address for the record. And please avoid repetitive comments. Is anybody here for the Pirelli Meadows annexation?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brad Kennison. I'm the Assistant City Engineer with Lehigh City. I have been asked to come and represent Lehigh as our Community Development Director is here also. I think he would like to say a few words. Appreciate your time this evening. You have a copy of our letter of protest. Appreciate your consideration in that. Again, as per the letter, I just kind of want to revise it. Not revise, but just go through a few of the issues, the key points that we feel like that you should reject this proposed Pirelli annexation for the following reasons. First of all, back in 2003, Lehigh City adopted an annexation policy. Since that point in time, and we have planned our utilities for the proposed developments in this area. We planned and sized them and spent a great deal of money to to plan for these developments. We feel like that it would be a waste of public funds, many of the funds that we've expended to plan and construct some of these facilities already. Secondly, we've had several annexations already that have moved into this area, this planned area. In particular, the C&M Properties annexation and the Highlands annexation, both of those were approved, and we've kind of moved into this area. Also, we've spent a significant amount of funds recently, just last year or the year before, on the Forest Miller for a large 50-acre park that's just a quarter mile or so to the east of this, where we plan to spend a significant amount of money for park improvements for our residents. Also, as stated before, we have a very significant concern about the Evans Road, which is that 3/4 width road. We have all of this utilities stubbed into this area from that road, and we're very concerned. You know, currently, right now, that road was intended to be stubbed to the south. It was intended to be widened to our full width, and with the proposed plan, it wouldn't be able to happen that way. Bottom line, we after careful planning and consideration in the city, in this area, feel like we've planned this area to be expanded within Lehigh City boundaries, and we'd like to continue with that expansion. So we respectfully request that you reject this proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I won't take too much more time. I'm Kim Struthers, the Community Development Director at Lehigh City. Just a couple of other, from my perspective, from a planning perspective, we think there will be some real serious challenges with especially Evans Street and 2300 West, or Saratoga Road. When you have a city boundary that splits on a public road like that, it's going to be very, very challenging with addressing, public safety response times, those things, mailing. And my understanding, have to decide whether we rename ours or you rename yours. It would cause a lot of confusion with addressing and things like that. And I guess the other thing, and I haven't looked in detail at the concept plan, but our other concern from a planning perspective is just the compatibility. You have the Snows Springs subdivision that this is immediately contiguous to, that are all 22,000 square foot lots and larger, and we're going to introduce a 9,000 square foot lot in that same area. I think it's good that they're both single family, but I think there'll still be some compatibility issues where our R122 zone is intended to be more of a rural, and we do allow animal rights, and you'll have people that could potentially have horses, cows, things like that on their property that don't allow that. So anyways, as Brad mentioned, we'd respectfully ask that you deny it. Otherwise, you have our protest letter, and we'll let that process run out, see what the course is. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Russ Babcock. I live in Lehigh City, in the Snow Springs area that is contiguous there to the proposed annexation. I had previously attended one of the Planning Commission meetings where this annexation was proposed, along with the other concerns that have been addressed significant. We as residents, and I'll speak for myself, but feel concerned that our concerns were not addressed with the current concept plan. Going along with what indicated about compatibility. With our current 22,000 acre lots, the current proposal has a couple dozen homes that don't align with that. We have 9,000 square foot 10,000 square foot and 12,000 square foot that butt up against that, not just area-wise, right? If it were to be, it would make more sense to have those lots larger. I believe in the Planning Commission meeting that I attended, the word of the day was feathering, where a lot of those, the Planning Commission, and I actually thought the Planning Commission had recommended that there be larger lots along those edges rather than the smaller lots. And where, if you look at the area, there's a development immediately north of Snow Springs that has about third-acre lot sizes, and they're not visually smaller. They fit in. It actually makes sense, and it flows with the Snow Springs development. It doesn't stand out. You would have along Evans Street, and I live right on Evans Street. There's proposed 7 homes that are 9,000 square foot, and whereas we have animal rights, and again, Mr. Struthers indicated we can have horses and livestock and the various animals, those individuals would not have that opportunity. That would be a significant confusion, along with the being able to understand, what I'm trying to say is that their homes would, those homes in particular would.
It's a 3-minute timer.
Okay. Basically, their homes would not, with the rest of our homes, there would be a lot of confusion with those residents as far as mailings and addressing and things like that. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll try and be brief as well. My name is Nathan MacArthur. I live at 2199 West Thomas Street, which is also in the Snow Springs area, and we love the area. We know that it's growing, and both Saratoga and Lehigh are having a lot of growth. I appreciated Councilman McCumber's statement earlier about wanting to be good neighbors and being good friends, and I know this is, I feel bad that it's become a little bit of a difficult issue, and it sounds like the developers have seen that got frustrating. And it's a sad thing to see that we're having struggles, and I was grateful for the Lehigh City's explanation of some of our concerns, and I think they did a very coherent job of explaining some of the situations, such as you mentioned earlier about storm drainage planning and the fact that we already have a lot of the utilities right next door to be able to connect into, and to bring all of the resources from Saratoga seems a little further away. But I'm grateful that you're willing to take the time to listen to our concerns and to make good decisions about this property and make sure that we are good neighbors together, because the one concern that I have that I don't think has been mentioned yet is a lot of the traffic. As we see a lot of the growth, the traffic on Pioneer Crossing has increased significantly, being the only access point between the McLaughlin properties as well as the Snow Springs and the Pirelli area, that we're not going to have enough access direction to get out to incorporate or to allow as many homes as are planned or looked forward to between those two things. So that's something that I would like you to take into consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Oh, got another one? Okay.
My name is Rodney Polson. I live right adjacent to one of these on White Street, where the road does an S-turn. That's
you put the address for the record.
Yeah, 1565. My concern is the ability to have service through maintaining the road, snow removal, upkeep of the road, emergency services, and getting confused in such a close proximity to each other. Also, I'd like to address the developer's issue that the landowners wanted to come here. You'll see that none of those landowners, the Pirellis, Christensen's, Allen, have any residents on here. they're just looking to just kind of move it okay.
Sounds like most of them
I
do.
didn't see which house there was. I'm sorry. Currently they live there, but the development shows that not permanently.
Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Rachel Kropp. I live up 1381 South White Street in Snow Springs, and the reason we picked that area was because it was rural, and we loved the way it looked, and we loved how there wasn't houses all around us. And I know that developments are going to happen and people are going to move in, but I would really appreciate it if it would keep that rural look and have the bigger lots. And just so you know, there's a lot of people that might not comment tonight that are here that are from the same area. And I think about everybody in Snow Springs feels the same way. I would say all of them do. But thank you for listening and for your time here tonight. We appreciate it.
Just wanted to make sure it was clear on the record that as a city, we've never been formally approached by any of the landowners for any kind of annexation or development requests. I don't know if they've called, maybe had conversations with different staff people that I'm not aware of, but I personally, and I know we haven't ever formally entertained. There was the Christensen property way up at the top end. They originally had requested all of their property to come into Lehigh, and then they changed their mind and cut it back to just the east portion of their property. But that's the only formal requests or conversations that I'm aware of that we've had with any of them. Perfect.
My name is Jeanette Blackburn, and I live on 1403 South White Street. Offer my support for the city of Lehigh. When we moved there, we looked at the master plan, and the Lehigh's master plan showed that it would be low-density half-acre lots, and that was a big consideration when we moved there. And we don't like the idea of a city boundary. This is just a small little neighborhood, and we just don't like the idea of a city boundary going right through this little neighborhood. So we support the city. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further, I will close the public hearing. You want to respond before we talk or after? Or?
Maybe I'll start.
Okay.
It might help shape the comments from our neighbors. We look forward to being good neighbors. As we plan for development and a new subdivision and new homes to come in, we want to make sure that it fits. And we look at the conditions in the adjacent land use. One of the things that we've looked at is the home sizes. Snow Springs subdivision, and they of course vary in size as you'd expect, and some of them are smaller than I would have thought. In fact, as I looked on the county records, the smallest home is about 2,500 square feet. I thought that's a lot smaller than I had expected from half-acre lots. To see what the existing land uses are, and we recognize the questions about animal rights. As we look, there aren't any homes in the Snow Springs area that have any larger animals that you would normally consider to be amongst the animal rights category. The property owners that are here doing development have horses and cattle in their property, and they don't feel like it fits anymore for their agricultural use next to the residential subdivision, and so they've moved on. These property owners have lived here many years, decades, in care of this land for a long time, and the land uses are changing, so they're acknowledging the need to stay up with the times and to accommodate that. Saratoga Road, which fronts on the west side of this project, is slated to be widened. Certainly it's a small road today, but with the project that'll be widened, with the project across the street from it, that widening will occur and the transportation needs will be there were some concerns about emergency access in connection to White Street. Let me suggest that having two accesses into White Street is an improvement for emergency access. They'll be able to come through this Borelli backside of the of White Street, and it'll be an improvement for that that condition. The request from the public during the Planning Commission meeting was that we would not extend Evans Street. A gentleman that lives at the end of Evans Street on the south end was thrilled to death that we showed that we were not going to connect that road, and so that concept that we have today anticipates that we won't be extending Evans Street on. So it minimizes the connections between the two neighborhoods, but I think that'll help with traffic. I don't see necessarily a need for any of the residents when I try to imagine traffic flow. Most of the residents in that through the Snow Springs subdivision in the commuting traffic pattern. The Pioneer Crossing is a major road to the north, and as the timing goes forward with the planned roads, the next major road is going to be the Vineyard Connector on the south side. Yeah, right there. It's the 145 North Street. In time when that's done, that's going to be a major road, and it wouldn't be surprising if our neighbors to the north of us come through headed south to Vineyard Connector to that 145, and that would be just fine. You know, it's an appropriate use of the public roads, regardless of city boundaries one way or the other. So we believe that to create a subdivision that blends well, that provides homes of similar sizes, that will have families that will work well, and could make a nice connection to these neighborhoods.
Thank you. Just a couple comments for Brad and Kim. I appreciate you pointing out some key facts. I think we have a lot of common interest we can build on. Within probably the same distance, we're building a 30-acre sports complex also in this area. So I think, you know, we're both providing that amazing service to the residents of the area. Annexation plan, we've got Loch Lomond over that way. We've looked at annexing this area and squaring up the boundaries there. We put a lot into utilities. As you know, the utilities flow to Pleasant Ready. We have water over there to service our other neighborhoods. So we do have the infrastructure, maybe not in the exact GPS location you do, but in similar area. And so we would hate to waste our residents' funds and public funds as we've invested in the future of our community. And you know, the split road exists. You go up to the north end where Lehigh annexed across the river. It's working fine. The density's higher than we would hoped, but Lehigh's got to put it somewhere, I guess. And it works in Linden and Orem on 1600 North. People haven't died because of ambulance services there. I have confidence in the process with the county, and after talking with Mayor Wilson in the council room here about 6 months ago, and their decision to go where they want to go. At that time, that was before any of these annexations came in. He reiterated that with the city manager, myself here in our building about property rights pertaining to some land to the north. And I imagine he would be a man of his word and stick with that going forward. Having grown up in Lehigh and around Burt, I believe that will be the case when we meet with the Boundary Commission. I know the council has stuff to say also, so I will stop talking for a moment. Yeah, Councilman Wilman.
You know, it's really refreshing to have someone come to our city and say, we want to build single-family homes. So often they come, hey, hey, we want to build, can say, hey, we want to build, 50 acres apartment buildings for rent. So thank you so much for, and obviously we wouldn't accept that. So thank you for bringing something that looks like it'll be a nice product. This is just a concept plan, but some of the comments about animal rights, even if they don't have that, we deal with that regularly. We can put provisions in or whatever on plats that will protect those residents, because we do families. You're increasing access points quite a bit. You already mentioned Saratoga Springs, or not Saratoga Springs, Saratoga Road, will be expanded, and that will actually make emergency services more accessible to future residents and current residents of the site. And this is just a concept. There is a few once everything is finished, sort of can't take action. We have to take.
Councilman McComber.
I do appreciate the single-family project. Again, you said the word of the day was feathering. This is considered a feathered product from one. You didn't bring in regional commercial, though regional commercial will be in this direct area on the corner of Pioneer Crossing, and so technically you could have come in with a higher density product, and that would be considered feathering off of regional commercial. Access points, the emergency access. Loch Lomond is a perfect example. You walk down the street and all of a sudden you're in Lehigh. It's not even on either half of the street. The houses on either side of the street. Saratoga's had a problem. We also have a shared resolution with Lehigh and our Eagle Mountain, as well as other cities, that just because you live in Saratoga Springs and you're Lehigh doesn't mean a Lehigh ambulance doesn't go and help a Saratoga Springs resident, or a Saratoga Springs ambulance would not help a Lehigh resident. And so we actually share those services because we believe in the common good and being good neighbors, and that shared agreement has been in place and will continue to be in place. So whoever can get there first to save someone's life or save their home is what we're really, I'm concerned about. For me, again, I talked about being good neighbors. Again, I think this is actually being a good neighbor. One, you need to respect the right of property owner. There are people in this room who I know specifically who believe very heavily in property rights, and so do I. The Constitution of the United States has certain provisions that do apply down to, we deal with the city in terms of the Constitution of the United States, but this is one of them, and the right of the property owner. And I appreciate the Mayor Miller's comments from Mayor Wilson, because when it was in his favor, he was very much in favor of property rights, and that landowner was absolutely going to get their rights. And now when it's not necessarily in his favor, when the residents choose, to your point, you made it very clear, the residents, their desire is to be in Saratoga Springs. It's no longer the same principle of property right. We have apartment complexes going in on our border. Those apartments, you've maybe seen those on the north end of Lehigh. They're on 2300, right? 2100. Those apartments go to our elementary school. Okay, so the city of Lehigh felt that being a good neighbor was discussing and actually putting a recycling facility on the border of Saratoga Springs. Recycling facility, that's a dump on the border, rural area on our border next to our homes. They're not asking to do that. So be grateful they didn't come, because I would almost have been tempted to say, let's be a good neighbor and tit for tat with what Lehigh's doing for Saratoga Springs residents by putting a recycling facility on the border next to our homes. Oh, and then a go-kart track right next to our city in Lehigh. They feel that that's a good neighbor, good opportunity to show that they care. And you didn't ask to put a go-kart track, which would be very noisy, so I appreciate you not doing that and being a good neighbor. So, I think it's important that we understand that this is a very tough situation. Utilities, you failed to mention the marina that we're giving this area. We're actually adding a marina. You'll have access to Utah Lake right by your home as part of all of this stuff that's going on, and we're very excited about making that a beautiful marina that's available for the public. So there's a lot of things going on, and we need to make sure that we all have our own individual concerns and things, but this is actually being a pretty good neighbor. And I too have concerns with the concept plan. For me, some of the connectivity, the dead end street actually is not a good idea, but I know why you did it. And so I will support you as the property owner while you're doing it. But that is the worst thing to do, is to break down connectivity for emergency vehicles. Because now the end of Evans Lane, it's going to take a lot longer for them to get emergency services. We work really hard as a council in Saratoga Springs to not have that issue. But we will support you as a landowner if that's something that you choose to go forward with. But so there's a lot, and I appreciate it, and I will support the continuing and taking this to the Boundary Commission. Thank you.
Councilwoman Barch?
Annexation, I have a problem with the annexation. I think that it's appropriate. I think that we've got our infrastructure there, and the landowner wants to be in Saratoga Springs, and we welcome them. There are some things with the actual layout of the concept plan that we could fix. We could even, I think, do a layout where none of those homes actually front on Evans Street, and we don't have to worry about the road change, the name change, or anything like that. So I think that there's some easy things that we could do, and you can get with staff and your people on Jinx is just fine. I think it actually is appropriate feathering further to the south as we get closer to the marina. You're going to have all that commercial. We are going to have some fairly high density areas in there, up against transit, up against those commercial areas. So this actually is very appropriate feathering, and I appreciate what you brought in. Thank you.
Councilman Porter?
Just wait for you to call on me. No, I'd echo a lot of what's already been said. I think, especially my biggest concern is the property owners and their right to use their land in a way that they see fit. I understand the concerns that are coming from heard these concerns in other situations. You know, don't put this next to my house. It's going to bring horrible things to my neighborhood. And when the people actually move in, they find that they're human beings just like you are, and you guys get along, and you're friendly and kind to each other. So I think sometimes people worry about too much about these future neighbors without faces, and forget that they're good people that will be moving in next year. As far as Lehigh, the city of Lehigh's comments, I think I'm going to leave that to the lawyers and the Boundary Commission to sort out all of those issues. The one maybe comment on is the discussion of all the planning and work that went into preparing infrastructure for this area. Seems like the one step you missed was talking to the landowners about what they wanted. And if you had done that, maybe you wouldn't have had to waste that money preparing for land that didn't want to be in your city. So I'm in favor of continuing it, and I'm sure there are some concerns with the concept plan, but I'm sure that can get worked out with staff and we move forward. So thank you.
Okay. Look forward to the Boundary Commission meeting and future discussions with Mayor Wilson. Like I said, I've known him for years. I have a lot of respect for him. And I have owners' property rights as a constitutionalist himself. I think that that's something he will stand up for. I will entertain a motion.
Can you move down one slide, please? Just move down
one slide.
There you go. I move to continue the action on the consolidated Pirelli annexation of 42.46 acres at this time, pending the outcome of the protest filed by Lehigh City.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman McComber, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Do a roll call. Councilman Wilden.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the web annexation and rezone. Thank you.
Situation. One difference is that the Pirelli annexation has to happen either concurrent with or before this annexation, because that makes it continuous. contiguous. But the Webb Lakeview annexation, the proposal is to annex 16.88 acres. Again, it's R19 zoning. The preliminary concept plan, this is its location. Preliminary concept plan is for 48 single-family lots. And it is, again, adjacent to the Pirelli annexation. They have the same concerns about Dry Creek. And once we get additional information on Dry Creek, concept plans may have to change. So the process has been exactly the same. It was June 20th, certified on July 20th. Actually, it was conditionally certified on July 20th. Then there was a 30-day protest period that ended August 20th. The reason it was conditionally certified was because there has been an annexation petition submitted, reviewed, and actually approved by Lehigh for the same property. These current applicants sent a certified letter to Lehigh indicating that they wanted to withdraw that and that they had no intention of moving forward with it. We required them to give us that certified letter, and they have. So they have withdrawn their activities with Lehigh and want to move forward with Saratoga. There's a little piece of, okay, so there's the piece of, this little piece right here is actually not within our annexation policy declaration, annexation policy plan expansion boundary as it currently sits. And we are moving forward with an amendment to that boundary to include this piece of property. The Planning Commission is actually going to have their first public meeting about it on Thursday. So we're moving forward with that, regardless of the disposition of this in particular. And that should be before the City Council on October 3rd, if all goes as planned. So for a while anyway, that will hopefully be resolved by the time this comes back before you. Again, you have copies of the letter from Lehigh City with the protest. Many of the points are very similar, and Kevin Thurman will respond to them. So the staff recommendation is that you conduct a public hearing, take public input, discuss the annexation, and then continue action on the Webb Lakeview annexation at this time, pending the outcome of the protest. They also need to come up with a new name. The county already has both Webb and Lakeview. So they will, before this actually gets recorded as anything, it will have to be called something different.
That's a county requirement, correct?
That's correct. Services.
Perfect. We'll open, is the applicant here? Perfect. We will open up the public hearing. Again, please avoid repetitive comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Councilwoman Barch has been timing that for us tonight. Is there anybody here for the public hearing on the Webb annexation and rezone?
So I won't reiterate all of our points again, but we would share the same concerns.
State your name again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Kim Struthers, Community Development Director for Lehigh City. One of the additional points that we did bring up on this Webb annexation is that it is not contiguous boundary. So our interpretation of the Utah State Code 10.9a, Section 402, in order for you to accept the petition and certify it, it needs to be contiguous. As your planner stated earlier, it's contingent on the Pirelli, but with Pirelli not being in Saratoga currently, our interpretation is that you should reject the petition until the Pirelli is finished. So, but yeah, we appreciate your comments, and it's great to hear where you guys are coming from on your side of this. So thanks for your time.
else for input on this? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the web annexation. Council discussion.
I would just say I wouldn't be in favor of expecting and making them go through the entire process.
I think continuing would achieve the same purpose as waiting for Pirelli to be decided.
Staff's recommendation. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to continue the action on the Webb Lakeview annexation of 16.88 acres at this time pending the outcome of the protest filed by Lehigh City.
I'll second.
From Councilwoman Barch, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a few items. Last 4 more items. We'll take a break. Okay. Okay, we'll take a break.